Hello everyone, Irish Warlock here, and today I'm doing a breakdown of the Dragon Age the Veilguard progression deep dive and its accompanying blog. This is just kind of a go over of how leveling up works, how improving equipment works, and this is both for Rook and for the companions. Obviously, it's not story based or it's not gameplay based or anything like that, but still beware spoilers because you can obviously still pick things up in the background, and I will be looking in the background to try and find things. So, if you want to go into Dragon Age of Veilguard completely blind with nothing spoiled, I'd recommend turning away from this video now. Now then, let's get started.
I'm Hillary Heidi, a producer at BioWare. Let's take a look at game progression in Dragon Age the Veilguard. In this video, we'll cover skill progression, item progression, and companion progression. My goal is to build...
Okay, and here we have some Canary. These are the Antom, they are the military arm of the Canary people. We've known from the IGN 22-minute gameplay that the Antom were going to appear and were going to be a faction we could face off against. I do have a breakdown of that video as well, so if you haven't seen that, you can go over there after this video. Now we're getting a good proper look at the Antom here. We don't really know if they are definitely going to be our enemies or if it's just like a choice that we get in the game. Maybe we can ally with them, maybe we can't. Be interested to see how it goes, considering what the Antom is up to currently, like in the grander continent-wide story that's going on. We do also get an interesting look at the weapons they're using, and I'll just try and get a better shot of that now. His weapon here is a gun, basically, or a cannon would probably be the better way to say it. And the Canary have these firearms because they are far, far more technologically advanced than the other races of Thedas, with the dwarves coming in second, but even then, it's not even close. The Canary are just on a completely different level when it comes to technology. The Canary essentially don't trust magic. If you're unaware of the Canary in World, if you don't know much about Dragon Age, the Canary do not trust mages at all. If you turn out you have magical abilities, they cut out your tongue and sew up your mouth, and they literally put you on a leash and use you as basically like a magical servant slash slave in their armies, where they don't really care about you or what happens to you. But because of that fear and mistrust of magic, it seems that they very much go in a more technological route to kind of compensate for that. So we know like they've got the biggest ships, which they call dreadnoughts, and you can see a dreadnought in Dragon Age Inquisition. Canary have multiple poisons and other alchemical things to use, sometimes to drive their enemies mad so they fight each other. One basically lobotomizes people, so like they become mindless drones and slaves. Their most famous one is Gatlock, which is an explosive powder. The dwarves have explosive powders as well, but it's not as good as the Canary Gatlock. And the Canary use Gatlock to basically use cannons on their ships. Now, I don't remember who it was and I couldn't find the quote, but I know one of the developers or writers said technically not cannons, but they also really haven't contradicted it in World. And this guy here definitely looks like he's using a cannon. You'll get a better shot of it later on. But yeah, the Canary are a bit more technologically advanced than the rest of Thedas, and I imagine we're going to see that in their enemies. We're going to see these guys using massive handheld cannons that they can also use as clubs by the looks of it. Now, before we get that, we got this guy here in the back. He looks like he's a suit of armor held together with magic. Like you can see there's gaps here where you can see through, but there's these like blue tendrils, like or wisps or energy moving between the suits of metal. So I wonder, is this guy like a construct that is here? I imagine the Canary wouldn't be happy with that because they don't like magic, and it's definitely magical by the looks of it. So maybe in this scene we're stumbling across the Canary fighting this guy because it looks like he's already taken some damage before we get into the fight. So yeah, maybe we've stumbled across this fight here. And judging by the background, I guess this is Arlathan. Definitely looks like Arlathan.
The rogue assassin who darts around my enemies and strikes them down with poison blades. In order to craft this build, I'll need to invest in the right skills, find and upgrade gear, and ensure my companions complement my strategy. Let's start by looking at skill progression. As you complete missions, find codex entries, explore the world and kill enemies, you'll level up your class. Each new level grants more health and unlocks skill points. The Constellation skill tree is where you spend points to unlock new skills. Each class has a unique skill tree and can specialize in a specific form of combat.
Right, so we're getting a look at the skill tree here, which is called the Constellation skill tree, and I think obviously that name suits. It very much looks like a constellation. And you can see here that the skill tree has been divided into 3 sections, not including the specializations, and they are called Burst, Sustain, and Control. And we've seen the Warrior one, and that was Weapons, Survival, and Abilities. So I was thinking maybe that like some of them were just based on the specific class, but some were kind of universal, like abilities was going to be seen across all 3, while Weapons and Survival were unique for the Warrior, but this is confirming now each class has its own sections, or at least the sections have their own names. So I wonder what the Mages one is going to be called.
Specializations unlock at level 20.
I apologize again. I was wondering how the specializations were going to unlock. Was it going to be like Dragon Age Origins, where you kind of just have to find them out in the world, talking to people, reading books, and then you reach a certain level and you can activate them? Or was it like Inquisition, where you're introduced to 3 trainers and you basically pick your specialization and then have to complete a small quest to unlock that specialization? It seems though that they're going to Dragon Age 2 route, unless we get more information later. But once you hit level 20, the specializations open, and then you just have to make your way to that specialization through the constellation.
Rogues can specialize as saboteurs, Veil Rangers, or duelists.
I think I'll be doing the duelist the first time I play a rogue.
Duelist specialization, which emphasizes agility and
it's definitely based off the Antibes crows, so maybe I'll play a crow duelist.
There are 4 types of skills: traits, passives, abilities, and ultimates.
Okay, we're going to stop here for a second, and I'm going to jump ahead a bit to what we see in the blog, but each one is based off different symbols. So we know that large circles indicate class core skills and weapons, and we can see this is the large circle here. So my guess is that's everything that makes a rogue, everything that makes a warrior a warrior. Then we've got diamonds, which are abilities. So these are the ones you unlock and you slot into the weapon wheel, and that's how you activate those specific abilities. Then we've got medium circles, which are these fellas here. These are major passives and ability upgrades. Then you've got small hexagons, which are here, and these are traits. And then we've got small circles, which are minor passives and stat boosts. And then the big diamonds are our ultimates, and we're basically just going to get told all of this now by this developer.
Traits are activated by button combos. The Riposte trait launches a powerful counterattack after a successful parry or defend.
And we saw one of these traits in the high-level gameplay video as the warrior. It was do a perfect parry and you get fire damage on your weapon for a certain amount of time. I like this as like a specific unlock. It's seen in a lot of games, just it's a button combo. It's nothing too innovative, but that's fine. I do like that you have to specifically unlock it. My only hope is just that they're not too hard to execute, because I think in a lot of games, as much as I love the most recent God of War games, I don't do a lot of the button combo stuff because I can just never remember the different combinations of how to pull them off. So hopefully maybe they're a bit simple. Like that one's like, a perfect parry and you get fire damage. Or what was this one? Yeah, that's pretty straightforward stuff. It's not that hard to pull off.
Trait launches a powerful counterattack after a successful parry or defend.
Yeah, that seems pretty standard. So it's not that hard to figure out. Obviously she's gone into passives here.
Active.
Pretty standard stuff with passives.
Passive gives you plus 10% necrotic damage. Abilities are actions you trigger during combat. With the Toxic Dash ability, you dash toward your target to land a deadly blow, dealing necrotic damage. This also applies the Sundered status, but we'll talk more about statuses when we get to companions. And finally, ultimates are high-impact, large attacks that take longer to charge up, but create devastating amounts of damage. Within the duel.
Okay, so there we have a specialization, Murder of Crows. I wonder how many specializations we have, because we seem to get this one, like it's the first ability we unlock after we unlock the specialization duelist. So how many are assigned to us per class? We can tell here, like this is an ability, that's not a specialization there. And you can tell in a second when the developer is adding their ultimate to their ability wheel, they're actually replacing one that's already in there. And you can see that one back at the start of the skill tree when it's going through like the basic rogue stuff. So my guess would be you get one per class and then one per specialization.
Longer to charge up, but create devastating amounts of damage. Within the duelist specialization, I have access to a unique ultimate ability called a Murder of Crows. I'll unlock this ability and then switch over to my character screen to equip my new...
Okay, yeah, so we can see another ultimate here called Concussive Barrage, which seems to do damage. Unfortunately, actually, I don't know if that's good damage or bad damage. It's damage Remind your enemies that a rogue's pockets are often filled with danger and explosives. Fire a barrage of concussive bombs that increase stagger the duration any staggered condition from this. Okay, obviously don't get all of it. So it seems this is the ultimate I get for just being a rogue, not being a rogue who's delved into a specific specialization just yet.
Ultimate. You can swap out your abilities and ultimates anytime you're not in combat.
Back here for a second. I'm sorry I'm jumping around a lot, but I just want to make sure I get everything. 4 slots for 4 ultimates. So if I'm looking at this right, each class can have 4 ultimates, one based off the class, in this case Rogue, and then one based off each specialization. But because you can't have multiple specializations active at the same time, is it 4 spread out through the class and one specialization that you have active? Like if I redistribute the points as a rogue and I'm a duelist and I go into saboteur, can I still get 4 ultimates, or is it just 4 ultimates for the whole class? I suppose that's the one question I would like answered.
You can swap out your abilities and ultimates anytime you're not in combat. You can also enhance your abilities with enchantments, but we'll get to that in part 2. By leveling up, unlocking new skills, and choosing a special...
Oh yeah, so we can see the Canary again. They've got the guns, or cannons, which have this like kind of cool... Is it meant to be a dragon's head? It looks like a dragon's head, and the Canary are associated with dragons. And we can see them back a bit. We can see them here fighting this construct again. We're getting a bit of a better look at it. Does look like it's a suit of armor held together with magic. So I don't think the Canary would be on this thing's side. We do know from, was it the Game Informer article, that Arlathan has, I think, like enchanted suits of armor protecting it. I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but I'm pretty sure the article said there was something like that in Arlathan Forest. So I guess this is one of those beings, one of those constructs that's defending the ancient elven runes.
By leveling up, unlocking new skills, and choosing a special...
Now, this Canary is called an Anadar. I'm going to take a guess that that's how it's pronounced. Couldn't find anything on that. It must be something new. Canary don't use names as such. They have names, but they're more like just ways for the priesthood to identify basically relations. To stop inbreeding, I guess, is the only real reason they have names. Instead of that, they have roles or ranks. So, like one of those famous Canary in the games is Sten. He's one of your companions from Dragon Age Origins. Sten is not his name, it's his rank. And when you get to Dragon Age 2, you meet multiple Canary called Sten. You fight against them. It's not the same Sten from Dragon Age Origins, it's just that Sten is a rank in the army. So Anadar must be a rank, but no clue what it was. Couldn't find anything indicating it.
But this is only the beginning. In part 2, we'll talk about item...
Stop here for a second. You can see at the bottom for Bow Rook that... Go back and I'll watch that. They're taking shots. So obviously this is how many arrows they have. This is how many they have available. And arrows are just naturally refilling over time. This has been kind of a staple for the Dragon Age games. Arrows are basically unlimited. In some games you get specialized arrows, like fire arrows or ice arrows that you could equip and they would run out. But for the most part, arrows have always been unlimited. It seems now though that they are unlimited, but they just do need to refill and recharge. My guess is that's due to the style of combat gameplay that Veilguard has. It's a lot more fast and fluid, so I imagine it's to stop basically ranged archers from just spamming enemies with arrows over and over and over and over again. Because if you just fire arrows unlimited without needing to take a break, probably be a little bit OP.
Your character Rook can equip up to 9 items. Each class has their own main hand, offhand, and alternate weapon. For example, my rogue has a sword, a rapier, and a bow for...
So yeah, main hand, offhand, and alt. So for their main hands, rogues have a sword. Their offhand, they have a rapier. Maybe it can be a dagger in the offhand or an axe in the main hand. This could just be what this build is. And then their alt is a bow. For warriors, it's sword in the main hand from what we've seen from the high level gameplay. But once again, maybe it could be an axe, maybe it could be a mace. That's just obviously what that build was. Offhand was a shield and alt was a two-handed weapon. And for mages, in the 22-minute IGN gameplay, I wondered for the orb weapon, Was the orb and dagger two separate weapons, or was it just a combination that you bought? Since they say every character has a main, an offhand, and an alternative, my guess is the staff is considered the alternative, the orb is the main, and the dagger is the offhand. That's just my guess. So you can see here by the weapons that we have these symbols here. So my guess is that the eye is the transmog look. And they've got a slash through it here because transmog isn't activated, and the armor looks like the armor that's equipped. But the swords do have the eyes on them, and maybe that is transmog is activated on the swords. And then the helmet's got the helmet symbol here, which probably means that the helmet isn't going to show when they're running around, but will appear in cutscenes. That's just my guess, because looking at this from here, I can't see where you would go
Ranged
into the
attacks.
transmog menu.
You also have a helmet, armor, a belt, an amulet, and 2 rings. You can acquire items in 2 ways. The first is by visiting vendors in faction stores.
Okay, so a few things first. This is a Shadow Dragon shop. We saw a Grey Warden shop in the IGN video, and we're going to see a few more shops actually during the rest of this video. And when they go into the buy, you'll see that there is, I guess, a staff that is specifically for Nev. In the last video, I wondered, was the Grey Warden shop just for Rook and Davrin? And then would the other faction-based shops just be for Rook and the companions associated with that faction? Judging by the fact that you're going to see a staff only for Nev here and then a bunch of Rook stuff, that does seem to be the case. Other thing to bring up though, she refers to faction stores and vendors. So I wonder what's the difference between a faction store and a vendor? Obviously, the vendor isn't associated with the faction, so we can't rank up their shop as we can the faction-based shops. But from a buying and selling perspective, what's different? Can the regular vendors just sell stuff for all the companions, or can they just sell stuff for Rook? Can the generic vendors not sell weapons or equipment and only sell crafting materials and other items? Maybe we'll see before the end of the video or in the blog.
The higher you raise your reputation with each faction, the more items become available for purchase. The second way to acquire items is simply by finding them in the world. For example, while exploring the Necropolis
This looks
halls,
so cool
I
and creepy, the
discovered a
Necropolis.
new
I love it.
main-hand weapon, the
The inner
enchanted
goth in me is
long
here
blade.
for it.
Every item has stats and properties, as well as a rarity, ranging from uncommon to rare, to epic, to legendary. This uncommon item has high physical damage and stagger stats, along with a property that deals plus 20% final attack
We're going to see
damage,
just a little bit of how we
making
can unlock the
final
different
blow and
properties.
attack chains more powerful. Perfect for my melee-focused
No clue what the disciple in it for is, but it looks really cool. I hope it's not a boss. I hope it's like a high-level enemy we can find randomly.
At the heart of item progression is the Caretaker's Workshop. The Caretaker is a mysterious entity that has set up shop in your home base, the Lighthouse.
So the Caretaker not only sails a boat around the crossroads, helping us get from A to B, but they've also set up a workshop in the lighthouse. Assuming it's the same Caretaker, or maybe the Caretaker inhabits multiple bodies at the same time. Don't know, but for the most part, they look the same, they have the same name. I'm guessing they're the same person. Also, unfortunately, it seems that there is no Sandal. A lot of people were thinking that our enchantment upgrade person might be Sandal, who we haven't seen since Dragon Age 2. Although I think did get a reference in Dragon Age Inquisition, I don't remember entirely. But at least it looks like in the lighthouse as our upgrade and enchantment person, Sandal will not appear at.
I go where I am needed, dweller. Now, I am here.
Here you can upgrade item stats and enchant your items. The workshop has its own rank, 0 to 10. You can increase this rank by finding Caretaker mementos out in the world.
Right, so we upgrade the Caretaker shop by finding mementos and giving that to the Caretaker. Other shops seem to be upgraded using money, resources, and I imagine your reputation with that faction probably plays into it as well. I like that the Caretaker store is different though. I like that it's not exactly like the other ones. It's just like a nice little bit of variety. It's not game changing, it's not wildly different, but it's something at least a bit different. And we can see one of them here is called the Means of Antiva, a symbol of the last nation that dared disarm Antiva. Tap the empty crystal when you're on your first contract. Your blade needs no venom save for which you give it. I wonder now, outside of these little like kind of blurbs here, these little description, do we get anything else out of them? Like if I give it to the Caretaker, do we get maybe like a little story, a little codex entry about what they mean and why it's important? Hopefully we do. It'd be nice like if each one was just a little bit unique and added a little more flavor to the Caretaker and their backstory.
Or buying them at shops.
And I like that you can find them
The
in
higher the
multiple
rank,
places,
the
not just
better your
shops and not
upgrades.
just against bosses or stuff like that.
When you upgrade an item, you'll spend the required resources, and that item will get a stat increase. At the same time, its level will increase by 1 until it matches your current Caretaker's Workshop rank. A higher rank unlocks.
It's handy that you can just upgrade your weapons and bring them up to higher levels with you, because if you're like me, you might end up developing like a bit of an emotional attachment to a weapon, and you might want to keep it for multiple levels past where you no longer need it, especially if that weapon has like importance in the backstory or the main story of the current game or in the world slash lore as a whole. But eventually that weapon won't be as good as other stuff you're finding. So it's icy that you can upgrade it and probably not carry a weapon from the start of the game all the way to the end of the game, because I imagine there are some weapons that are always going to be better than those weapons. You're always going to find a better weapon regardless. But it's still nice that you can kind of upgrade a weapon and carry it with you for a while.
New enchantments. These can be applied to an item or ability, imbuing it with a unique property.
So, enchantment has changed a lot for Dragon Age the Veilguard. In previous games, you'd find a rune and then you'd bring it to someone, Sandal for Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2, and Dagna for Dragon Age Inquisition. And they would just slot a rune onto your weapon if your weapon had a slot for that rune. And that would be like, plus 10 fire damage, health regain on a kill. It was stuff like that. But there were specific runes you had to either find in the world or craft. And then once you use that rune, in Inquisition, if you took it off, it was gone. And in Origins and 2, if you took it off, you got it back. Different here, though. We know runes are then the activated like abilities that you get through the dagger, while enchantments here are boosts to like specific stats or damage. Like you can see 25% stagger, 10% weapon damage, 20% barrier damage, 20% armor damage. Judging by the fact that there's a bar there and you can scroll down and you can see the bottom says unlocks at rank 6. There's probably more, maybe some are based around like maybe some are like damage against specific enemies or health regain on a kill or health regain on a parry, stuff like that. I like that it's a little bit different. I like that it's not the same as it was in the previous games. Like if it had been the same, that would have been fine. No complaints against that. I like that they're bringing in just a little bit of variety. Like the runes aren't gone; they're still there. Everything's just a little bit different, and that's fine. Like the series has been going on for quite a while, and I don't think it needs a massive rejuvenation and change. But little tweaks here and there will help keep it fresh and keep it alive a lot longer.
For example, I can enchant my main hand weapon with plus 25% more stagger to quickly set up enemy takedowns.
So I wonder, is that enchantment permanent? Once I have it on, is it stuck there, or can I take it off and put a new one on? Or if I want to put a new one on, do I just need to get a new weapon entirely?
I'll also add an enchantment to one of my abilities, Toxic
And I like
Dash,
this. I
to
like that we can
increase its crit
enchant
damage by
our
25%.
abilities, because that just gives us a whole lot of customization to our rooks. There's a lot of skills to go through. There's a lot of gear and weapons to use. There's ultimates. Things can be upgraded and made a little bit stronger. And now we have enchantments, not only to make our weapons stronger, but to make our abilities stronger, or just give them unique traits like plus 25% ability critical damage or plus 25% ability stagger. Like it's not a big change to the ability by the looks of it, or like, no, 25%. That's a quarter. That's big damage. 50% ability barrier damage. That's pretty significant. But what this means and what's really good is it's just a lot more customization and a lot more variety for our rooks. If you got like 5 or 6 rogue inquisitors from 5 or 6 different players and looked at them all, ignoring race or appearance, just looking at abilities and weapons, they'd be pretty similar. Like there wasn't a lot of variety in the customization option. Odds are some of those rogues would have been assassins and they would have picked the exact same abilities as each other. And of course, there were differences like how the players were playing them, what enchantments they were using, what upgrades they chose. But I think this just takes it one step further. It puts a little bit more of a difference between my rogue rook and another person's rogue. We might have the exact same abilities, but that person might not have enchanted their abilities where I have, or we both enchanted our abilities, but we've chosen different ones. It's not night and day between these two rooks, but it's small little tweaks to make them our own.
Your companion's items can be upgraded and enchanted as well. More on that in part 3. But the workshop rank affects more than just the items you bring to the shop. Anytime you find or buy
Stop for a second. We've got a crow shop here, and like before, have weapons for ourselves, but we've also got stuff that is just for Lucanus.
a new item in the world, its level will match the current rank. So if your current rank is 1, New items you find will be at level 1. But if your current rank is 5, new items will be at level 5. And if you find or purchase a
Right, so going to stop it there for a quick second. When they say rank there, they mean the rank of the workshop, not the rank of the shop you bought it from or your own level or anything like that. Like they did say that there, but when I heard it a few times, it was not confusing, but it took me like a second to kind of get it through. And I think it's good that it's based off the workshop and not the actual shop you're purchasing from. Hypothetically, if I was only going to Anteve and Crow shops, let's say, and there's 5 Anteve and Crow shops in the world, we don't know how many shops there are, but let's just say there's 5 Anteve and Crow shops, and I had all of them at level 2 except for one. I had that one at level 5. I'm obviously only going to go to the level 5 one then because that's got the best gear and best equipment. I'm not going to bother going to the level 2 one unless the like inventory is different, which I imagine it would be. But at least with the strength levels of the equipment and weapons based off the workshop, you know it's not going to matter. Oh, I haven't invested a lot of money into this specific shop or into this specific faction. You can still get good gear from them if you've never used them, which will be really good as well if some factions are introduced later into the game. Obviously, we don't know how long it takes around, but let's say the Lords of Fortune aren't introduced to hour 10, let's say, while the Shadow Dragons are introduced at hour 3. That's 7 good hours then where you would have just with the Shadow Dragons and you'd be upgrading them and you'd be getting really good high level gear from them. Then you get to the Lords of Fortune and you're like, oh, all your gear kind of sucks compared to mine. Why would I bother purchasing any of this Lords of Fortune gear except to upgrade Tash? So by making everything to the workshop, it means all these different faction vendors are at least going to be on the same level of what gear they provide to you throughout the entire game, which I think is really, really good.
duplicate of an item you already own, 2 things happen.
Prepare yourselves.
All this more much
The level of your
shopkeeper's
existing
creepy.
item will jump up to match the caretaker's workshop rank, increasing its stats. The item will also be empowered, unlocking a property and increasing its rarity. Buying a duplicate of my offhand weapon, the Duelist Blade, bumps up the blade's stats, unlocks a property that applies necrosis to enemies I hit with riposte, and changes its rarity from uncommon to rare. So it's a good idea to keep leveling up your caretaker's workshop, because the higher its rank, the better your items will be, whether you're
Then that's
upgrading
how we
them
unlock the
at the
properties for our
workshop
gear
or
and
finding
weapons.
them out in the world. Another item type you can find or buy are runes. Each rune provides a passive bonus to your build, as well as an active bonus you can trigger. Up to 3 runes can be slotted into Rook's Lyrium Dagger. I'll slot in this Scorch rune, which allows my
Yeah, so as I
otherwise
said, the runes have
necrotic
changed a
focus
lot
build
compared to the
deal
previous
out fire
games,
damage.
but it's fine. I'm okay with it.
But skills?
I like that they're passive and active as well, because if they were just active, I imagine they'd be a bit easy to forget about. And especially after a tough fight where you forgot to use the rune, you'd be like, oh, damn it, I could have used that rune. That would have been really, really helpful. But at least with the passives, at least if you forget to use the rune, you go, oh, well, I forgot to use the rune. But the little passives probably played a part and helped me. Especially if it was like, the plus 10 fire damage and you're fighting against Darkspawn, Well, I forgot to use the fire active ability, but the fire passive at least played its part.
Items, and upgrades aren't the only elements of creating your build, because in the Veilguard, you're not fighting alone. In Part 3, we'll talk about companion progression. Each companion has their own skill tree and unique items. They can be equipped with a main hand weapon, an offhand weapon or keepsake, armor, and a trinket.
Right, so we can see companions are a little bit different. They don't get all the jewelry stuff that we do, and they don't get the alternate weapons. They just have whatever weapon they're assigned to them. And you can see Lucana's here. He's got his main weapon, which is a sword, and his offhand, which looks like a rapier. And we'll jump back here and take a look at Davrin, who has his sword, and then his off is for his shield. And we'll take a look at Emmerich.
Skill tree and
But Emmerich here, main hand for a staff, offhand for what looks like a necklace with a skull on it. And I don't mind that we can't change the weapon loadout for our characters, because for me, I'd never really do that in games. Like, I never make Sarah a dagger rogue, and I never make the Iron Bull a sword and shield. I never make Alistair a two-handed guy. Because I always feel those chosen fighting styles that Bioware give our specific companions just fit with them so much. Like, Bull should be a two-handed weapon wielder. Varric should obviously always only use Bianca. Aveline should be a sword and shield defender because the weapons they use aren't just based on their classes, they're based around their personalities, and I would prefer to keep them that way because it makes them unique and it makes them who they are. Because it's what separates Harding from Lucanus or Emmerich from Nev. Now, before we continue on, I'm going to point out here, they don't bring this up in the video, but I guess this is the approval rating for our companions. We can see Emmerich's here is a 2. My guess would be maybe we start here and we go around, and once it hits here, this 2 jumps up to 3. And this is what we are to Emmerich. We're a polite acquaintance. And maybe when we hit 3, we become friend, and then 4 is good friend, and stuff like that. I like that we can see our relationship with them. I didn't mind that it wasn't there in Inquisition because I felt like however the developers put it in, I feel like I'm okay with seeing that. It doesn't really bother me too much. But I do like that we can see it. I'm not going to be chasing high level approval from all the companions. I'm going to play my Rook as they are, let the companions react to me, but at least I know, yeah, this person likes me, this person doesn't like me. Because I also felt sometimes in Inquisition, maybe it was a little bit hard to tell at some points. Some points it was easy to tell because they just flat out told you, you're an ass and I hate you, but it's nice that we can actually see it from the menu as well.
Unique items. They can be equipped with a main hand weapon, an offhand weapon or keepsake, armor, and a trinket. Some gear, such as this.
Hang on now, Lucanus is 3 and he says contract killer. Maybe it's just a bit different for each companion. Bar that goes up and a number that goes up, but maybe what's said here varies from each companion to be a bit more thematic to them. Although I don't think I'd call any of my friends a contract killer. Maybe one.
Corvid Cloak on Lucanus can enhance my character's build. In this case, applying bleeding or necrotic damage whenever I detonate an overwhelmed target. And at the Caretaker's Workshop, I can upgrade and enchant companion items just like Rook's gear. Let's upgrade Lucanus's Corvid Cloak to level 5, greatly increasing its bonus ability damage, and enchant it with +1 maximum stack.
But even though the companions get less gear than us, it's still all treated the same way.
Companions also have their own skill trees, so as they level up, you can spend points to unlock skills that complement your own.
Right, so we can see here, this is the companion skill tree. Still got the diamonds for abilities, small circles, big circles, no hexagons from what I can see. And if I'm right, no ultimates either. So I guess the ultimates are just for Rook, which makes sense. I like that their skill tree is very, very different from our own. Previous Dragon Age games, Origins 2 and Inquisition, it was the same skill trees. A Warrior Inquisitor had the exact same skill tree as Cassandra, Bull, and Blackwall, not counting the specialization. But here, it's different, it's unique. And this is really, really good because it makes Rook unique and it makes the companions unique. Rook and the companions aren't all just like carbon copies of each other. They are all unique, which makes sense for the companions because they're meant to be experts in their field. They are meant to be entirely unique from each other and from everyone else. And that's the same for Rook. And I really like that. I hope that some of these abilities they get are just for them. Like, I hope Lucanus has abilities that a rogue Rook can't get. I hope Nev has abilities that a mage Rook can't get. Hopefully there's some that match up so we can kind of use the same ability to deal like a lot of damage or a lot of freezing or a lot of sundering or whatever. But I hope there's a lot of unique ones that are just for them. Also, it seems 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 abilities only, and then the rest is just upgrading that ability. I mean, I don't mind that too much. More abilities I think would have been nicer or would have been better, but if they are like specific ones for that companion and you improve and grow them, I think that's still really good because you're taking your companion and you're not changing them, you're improving them, if that makes sense. Taking Cassandra from Inquisition for a second, odds are by the end of the game, she's going to have a lot of abilities to use. And based on your strategies and your tactics and what you're using, is she going to be using the exact same abilities from the start of the game at the end of the game? Maybe, maybe not. But at least this way you know, yeah, Lucanus only has 5 abilities. I keep 3 of them active at any time, but I can upgrade and make those abilities much, much better. So that by the end of it, this ability here at the start of the game is wildly different from this ability at the end of the game. Final thing I want to ask is, what is this in the middle, this circle thing with the Veilguard symbol? I'm pretty sure companions aren't going to get ultimates. I'm pretty sure they're going to be Rook only. My guess is maybe this is an ability or a trait or something that unlocks when we get the approval rating high enough because it's got the symbol here. Or maybe it's after we do a personal quest. In the high-level gameplay, when they were picking the companions to go to Weishaupt, Nev had the symbol for the Veilguard just above her. And I wondered, oh, maybe that's because we've gotten her approval really high, or we've done her personal quest, and like we've locked her in. She's loyal to Rook and the Veilguard now. So maybe that's it. Maybe once you get your companion to a certain point in the game, either through approval or through their own personal quests, they unlock a unique ability or skill or buff or something.
Some abilities can serve as primers, applying status effects to enemies such as sundered, overwhelmed, or weakened. Other abilities are detonators, combining with primers to create powerful detonations on status-afflicted targets.
That's really cool that we know some abilities will prime, some abilities will detonate. That means we can make like Rook be only detonating and all of our companions be just primers. We make Rook just a primer and all our companions detonate, or we make a little bit of a mix to suit like different situations and what companions we're going to bring with us.
You can swap out companion abilities anytime you're not in combat, just like Rook. In some cases, you'll want to spec companions with abilities that can fill in for weak spots in your build. For example, if I know I'm going to face a horde of Darkspawn,
I want to jump back here for a second because I just saw something interesting.
For example,
so Emmerich here got the 3 abilities, but this is locked for some reason. But Lucanus and the others all had something here. Now Emmerich has level 2 approval.
If I know I'm going
Now it's not based off that because Davrin has 2 here, but he's got something here as well. So maybe it's based off like the level or a skill or getting a certain amount through their personal quest. But it seems, yeah, they've got the 3 abilities, but then they've got something else. And I wonder, is that a passive or a trait or something else?
to face a horde of Darkspawn, which are resistant to my Rook's necrotic damage but weak against fire. I'll want to bring along a companion like Davrin, who has powerful fire abilities. I'll also bring Nev, who can detonate targets that I've primed. First, I'll use Davrin's Asan's strike ability to inflict.
You can see here, when they're picking their abilities, we can see which ones have combo opportunities. And these ones are obviously for priming. And the game's always saying, hey, click this because you're going to prime with this ability. And then another ability we'll see in a second will flash up saying, hey, use this because you're going to detonate that primer you just set up.
Inflict fire damage and knock down his Darkspawn. Next, I'll rush in with Toxic Dash to prime a target with the Sundered status.
Yeah. Rook primes them, and then Nev detonates them. And you can see, hang on, I'll let it go through a second more.
Finally, I'll use
combos with that here. So you can see, then the game has told you, yep, you successfully primed, and this will successfully detonate. We see some of them also had different symbols, like this one here, which is Sundered. Rook used this one because this had the Sundered ability as well, and now Nev is using this one because it has the Sundered ability. So my guess is, had Rook used this one to prime them, Nev couldn't use this one to detonate them. It's got to be very specific ones, which is really good because it's a little more thinking, a little more planning, a little bit more prep. And while I don't mind that it flashes up, hey, use this ability to combo with this primer, my hope is that somewhere in the settings we can turn this off. We know the UI is very heavily customizable about what you can and can't see. In the IGN gameplay, I believe Corinne said you could actually turn off your health so you didn't see how much health you had and how much you were losing, and you just had to take a gamble on like how close you were to death, which is really, really tough and really challenging, I imagine. But I'll probably give it a shot at some point. But hopefully, yeah, we can turn this off and maybe just play it by ourselves.
Use Nev's Icebreaker ability on the Sundered enemy to detonate it. In other situations, such as this battle against the undead, I want to max out my necrotic damage potential. I can accomplish that by bringing along Lucanus, a fellow rogue whose gear and abilities increase the amount of necrotic damage I can deal out.
Kind of really weird that the undead are vulnerable to necrotic.
Our progression systems allow you to finely tune your skills, gear.
Okay, I'm just going to jump back here for a second. Right, so this guy here got quite a bit of gear around him. He's got a bow here for harding, and we're going to see that in a second. And obviously stuff for Rook. Like, what is all this stuff here? Obviously, this stuff here is crafting, I imagine, because it's got the number of how many you can buy. This stuff here is obviously for the caretaker. Like, a little nug statue, grilled fish. dragon statue and a bear statue and whatever that is. I wonder what they're used for. They're not obviously random trinkets you could buy, because really you get trinkets and you sell trinkets for cash because it's meant to be all they're useful for. So what are they for here? Also, I wonder, is this guy associated with a specific faction or is he just a generic vendor? Judging by his garb, I mean, he could be a Lord of Fortune, but I imagine Lords of Fortune would supply Tash's gear. We know through the factions like the Antivan Crows would supply Lucanus with his gear, the Grey Wardens would supply Davern with his, the Lords of Fortune would supply Tash, and the Morn Watchers supply Emmerich, while the Shadow Dragons would supply Nev and the Veil Jumpers would supply Bellara. Who is supplying Harding? I don't think the Inquisition is going to play a major role in this game, and that's per faction, I imagine. Maybe Harding gets hers from the generic vendors. Maybe this guy is just a generic vendor, and that's how Harding gets her stuff, because maybe Inquisition just isn't that big in this part of Thedas, or maybe they're just not that big anymore. They're definitely not that big anymore, depending on your choices in Trespasser. So, yeah, maybe this guy's just a generic merchant. Generic vendor, I should say.
Gear,
And I love that her bow is called Mayhem.
and
The Iron
companions
Bull would be
to
proud of her.
create the perfect build.
Gotta sit a distance.
Right then, that's the end of the video. Let's quickly jump over to the blog and then we'll wrap things up. Right, here we are, Journal 7, Progression and Companions. Hello everyone, it's September already. Today we want to delve deeper into progression, items and companions with this blog and accompanying videos. Minor spoilers in the video, already seen it. Hopefully after today, players will have a better sense of how to customize Rook and unite the Veilguard. Skill tree progression. Reaching max level 50, Rook will be able to have a unique playstyle tuned to deliver coordinated attacks alongside their companions. The largest experience boosts come from completing quests. The bigger and more momentous the quest, the better the bonus will be. Rook also gains experience from killing enemies and exploring, but gaining levels is most efficient when helping the people of Thedas or taking time to deepen Rook's bond with the Veilguard. That's kind of standard across all Dragon Age games or even all RPGs. You get experience from exploring, picking up codex entries, killing enemies. Strong enemies give more experience, but obviously you're always going to get the most experience from completing quests. So that's just some standard RPG stuff there. After enough experience points, Rook will level up and be awarded a skill points to place into the skill tree. The Constellation skill tree lays out all the possible areas of growth with the types of skills denoted by the shape. And that's something we saw in Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition. The different shape of the skill on your skill tree reflected what kind of skill it was. So we've already gone through this, but large circles are for class. These are the core skills and weapon proficiencies. Diamond is abilities and can be assigned to an ability slot. Medium circle, major passive or ability upgrade, adds effects or modifies existing abilities or stats, like guaranteeing a critical hit on a knockdown or extending range. Small hexagon is a trait, modifies existing class skill like counterattack, extending an attack combo, or missile block return. So if somebody shoots something at me like an arrow or a blast from one of those cannons, I can knock it back at them. Definitely going to be invested in that one. And finally, we've got Small Circle, which is a minor passive or stat boost, increases efficiency of abilities, passives, or stats. Node selections are designed to harmonize into cohesive builds. This ensures that Rook's strength is always growing as the playstyle is being refined. Still, if another path calls the player instead, skill points can be funded individually or the entire skill tree. Oh, okay. At any time with no resource costs and spent elsewhere. Oh, I was kind of hoping there was a resource cost to it because I like being able to respec in an RPG and move my character in a different way. But at the same time, I don't like when it's free because I feel like then maybe it's a little bit cheaty. Like, I think there should be a cost to it, even if it's just like, 1,000 gold or 500 gold, like depending on how valuable gold is. I do think there should be a cost, but it is what it is. Each class will also have access to 3 specializations outlined in our combat blog. We've already looked at that in a different video. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. Rook can gain powerful abilities tuned to the theme of that specialization after unlocking it. While specialization areas are themed by faction, they are not restricted to a Rook of that faction. For example, a Grey Warden Rook can still take the Veil Ranger specialization if they are a rogue. Item progression. There will be a plethora of equipment to find or buy throughout Thedas, including weapons, armor, and accessories. Each item will have its own stats and properties. With respect to weapon and armor advancement, duplicate items empower them to increase the stats and unlock additional properties. So, if you find a duplicate of a weapon, like if you've got a +1 fancy rapier, and you find another +1 fancy rapier, it becomes a +2 fancy rapier, rather than you keep the +1 fancy rapier and then you sell off the second +1 fancy rapier. And I also hope there is a sword called the Fancy Rapier, because that would be really cool. For more upgrades, Rook will find a Caretaker's Workshop in the Lighthouse, as seen in the screenshot, where equipment can be upgraded and enchanted to unlock additional effects for Rook and their companions. It wasn't clear in the video where the caretaker's shop was, but looking at it and then looking at the IGN video, it looks like it's in the main square of the lighthouse, just across from the entryway to the library, literally at the start of the video when you exit the library and go out into the outside part of the lighthouse. Upgrade equipment will receive increased stats. There will be a list of basic enchantments to start with, but each time Rook upgrades the rank of the caretaker's workshop, more enchantments will become available. Each item or ability can have a single enchantment applied to it, and each enchantment can only be used on a single item or ability at a time. Okay. So if I give plus 10 stagger to my sword, I can't give it to one of my abilities or my secondary weapon. That I do like. I really like that it limits us. Like, it means you have to think about what you're assigning to it. Do I want to give this like plus 10 extra damage to this weapon that I always use? Or do I want to give it this ability that I only sometimes use, but it would be a lot better if it was attached onto that ability? That's good. I like that. I like then that there is at least a good bit of thinking that you have to do when picking these enchantments. Rook will be aligned with a faction of the player's choosing from the beginning of the game. The chosen faction will influence the initial appearance of Rook, particularly when dressed in casual wear. However, don't worry about getting locked into any specific style, since any visible armor can be transmogrified to resemble another that has been collected via the wardrobe in the lighthouse. Okay, so we saw the wardrobe in the IGN video. It's in the meditation chamber where the fish tank is. But also then that means that that eye symbol in the menu isn't for transmogrified. Or maybe it does mean transmogrified, but it's just showing you what's transmogrified. It's not where you change it. Yeah, that's my guess. There will also be appearance only armor, as we know this, such as the Blood Dragon armor for pre-orders and casual outfits. You can also find these at some merchants and found by exploring over time. This gives the player the ability to tailor Rook's appearance independent of tantalizing stat boosts or upgrades. I do really like this. I like this game's got transmog because I'm one of those players that'll be like, yes, this armor's better, but it looks ugly compared to my other armor, so I think I'll keep the other armor that visually looks appealing, even at the cost of like serious stat boosts. So even though I don't use transmog in a lot of games, I will definitely be using it here. Companion's progression. Yeah, we got a shot again of the skill tree for Nev. Rook's companions are equally important to success as the player endeavors to save Thedas. Members of the Veilguard each have their own levels, and each level grants them 2 skill points. Okay, is that 2 just for the companions, or does Rook get 2 as well? Each companion will have quests to deepen Rook's bond with him, and this is one of the main ways for them to gain experience. Companions can also gain experience through unique conversations and decisions with them. These quests and bonds are not limited to romantic interests, platonic friendships are just as important and in focus in Dragon Age the Veilguard. So, our companions don't level up alongside us as they gain experience. So in other RPGs, including previous Dragon Age games, your companions had their own experience bar that would move up as they kill enemies and as you complete quests as a whole. But it seems here they move up independently depending on how you interact and use them. And that actually makes sense from what we saw, because in the video, we could see that like Lucanus had a lot of skill points spread out. Like his was pretty extensive, but I think then like Davrin only had a little bit in his. So I guess in that gameplay there, whoever that Rook was mainly bringing Lucanus with them and wasn't using Davrin as much. It's an interesting way of doing things. It does mean then you actually have to focus on your companions. You have to talk with them. You have to do their personal quests. You have to actually use them. And you know what? No, I like this. I really like this. It puts more of a difference between Rook and the companions, which I think is really good because they shouldn't all just be carbon copies of each other who advance the same way and who have the same end goals from a stat and gameplay perspective. Yeah, this is really good. It means you run the risk then also of having some companions that are a lot stronger. Like you could play where Bellara, Davern, and Emmerich are like really strong, but Harding and Lucanus aren't because you don't use them as much. It means if you want all your companions to be on equal footing, you have to bring them with you. You have to use all of them and you have to actually focus on them. It's just like a last little step to make the companions more central to the game. You will be able to take 2 companions on missions. Each companion has their own set of gear to manage, which can be upgraded and enchanted in the caretaker's workshop as well. Companions also have primer and detonator abilities that they can combine with each other or Rook in combat. Each primer has a matching detonator. Using the correct combination, a detonation will trigger, dealing increased damage across an area and increased stagger. For example, as seen in the video, Rook can use Toxic Dash to prime the target with the Sundered status, and Nev detonates it with her Icebreaker ability. These videos have highlighted 3 main areas of progression in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Rook and the Veilguard will grow throughout the game and there's plenty of builds to explore. We put the videos all together. Yeah, we've already watched that, so that's fine. As Rook journeys through Thedas, overcoming challenges, forging lines, and facing down the corrupt elven gods, it'll be up to the player to define what kind of Rook and Veilguard will emerge from this conflict. Will you be their hero? And we're in the thick of it now. We'll be back soon with more details on missions and exploration. This month, IGN will also be releasing exclusive content, so keep an eye out. Chat soon. Yeah, that is all really cool. We also know from the stuff coming up that we should see the character creator very, very soon, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, progression gotten like a bit of an overhaul compared to previous games. Not a massive overhaul. You know, I'm not even going to use the phrase overhaul. It's more like advancement, evolution. It's the same, just a little bit better and a little bit different. And I really like it. I like that our companions don't have XP bars. If I'm reading that correctly, they're going to level up just as we focus on them. I like the whole upgrading system for the caretaker's workshop and the shops. I like the new way enchantment works, that it's about boosting stats, not about just assigning runes that deal like an extra 5 fire damage or that make you just a little bit more resistant to magic. I really, really love the skill tree. Like, that might be one of the best skill trees I've ever seen in any video game. I love that it's all just crisscrossing in multiple different directions, and if you want something, you've got to move to it. But there's different paths you can get to move to it as well. It's just a very unique and very different, and I really, really like it. Every bit of information we get about this game just makes me so much more hyped. I know I said in the IGN one, I was a bit worried that they may be laying everything on a bit too much. We were seeing a bit too much and maybe getting a bit too much spoilers, but honestly, I'd rather have this than have nothing. I'd rather have this than even have less than this, because it's just make me feel a lot more confident in Veilguard. I was already confident, but it's just making me feel so much more confident. Again, what do you guys think? What do you think of this new progression system? Do you like the companions don't have an XP bar anymore? Would you prefer if enchantment was like it was in the previous games, or do you think this is better? How we gather gear, how we level up gear? What's your thoughts on all of that? Do let me know down in the comments below. Please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Like this video as well if you enjoyed it, because both of those really do help the channel grow. Check out some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all my content going forward. And of course, thanks for watching.